today we're talking about how to prioritize the squat, okay? First things first, we always start with a neutral spine. So here's the two-hand rule again. So the first thing we're gonna do is we're gonna step under this bar, okay? So I'm just gonna work my way under it. Now I'm gonna make sure that I get my feet next to each other, okay? The next thing I'm gonna do is I'm going to get my arms or my wrists as close as I can over top of this bar as I can. Then I'm going to snap and try and break the bar. I'm going to create some external rotation off the bar. Good. Okay, my knees are out. I'm going to pick the bar up off the rack. Okay. Next thing I'm going to do, and we're kind of going backwards here. Usually I back in and walk out. I'm doing a little bit the other way so that I can kind of demo a little bit better for you guys. Okay. So you can see that I've walked this bar out and I'm still in the same neutral position as when I kind of got underneath of it and kind of started this the takeoff. Okay. So now what we really got to really understand here is that, and I'm going to kind of walk this back, and we're going to kind of start back over here a little bit here, is this. Okay. Okay, so the thing is that we have to do a squat just to squat. So the first squat we're going to do is just out of the rack. Okay. And we need to make sure that when we're getting out of the rack that we've prioritized our spine and got it as neutral as we can. Because when we've got weight loaded on this bar and we walk out with it, if we have not kind of gone and done that and made sure that we've prioritized the neutral spine, we can't get ourselves back even. When there's weight loaded on the bar, then there's no way for us to kind of get the tension and create a good neutral position and control the slack. So we have to really make sure that when we're starting our movements, and that's with everything, but especially when we're loading heavy weights on top of us, that we're really prioritizing the spine and getting nice and neutral before we even kind of set off for the task at hand. Okay, so again, what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk in here, I'm going to step in underneath the bar. Okay, you can see how I press the knees out. Okay, I'm going to get the wrists over top as much as I can. Okay, break the bar. Good. I'm going to stand up. I'm going to squat the bar out of the rack. I'm going to walk out of the rack. And again, I would back out of the rack instead of going this way. Okay, you can see I'm still trying to keep my wrists over top. Right now, having our hands a little wider is going to help us if we've got mobility issues to kind of get into a good neutral position. Okay, you can see my hands are just a little wider than shoulder. It's thumbs to shoulder and then just a little bit wider is where we kind of want to keep them. And that helps us get past a little bit of our mobility issues and get into a little bit better position. I'm squeezing my butt and keeping a nice neutral position, making sure that my pelvis and my rib cage are nice and lined up. That gives me a nice neutral spine that's stacked on top of each other and allows for the musculature around my spine to help kind of brace and stabilize things, okay? Now, we talked about this a little bit before, how important it is to still take the slack out from the shoulder. And we're going to continue that even here with the squat. A lot of people think it's just a leg exercise, so they kind of let the bar relax and kind of give up the torque off the bar. And it's understandable when people are missing a lot of in-range movement and a lot of rotation, they're going to have kind of an issue getting the hand behind the back or behind the bar. So what we have to do to kind of start is I just tell people, hey, you don't have to have the wrists over top, just kind of start the motion. Start the over the top of the wrist, start the breaking of the bar so that we can kind of start going in that direction, okay? So now, after you've got those wrists over top and we've got the slack out from the shoulder and now we've got the butt on, so now we've taken the slack out of the whole system, okay? And now we can kind of organize our squat in full extent, okay? So now I'm going to squeeze my butt, I'm breaking the bar. I'm still thinking like with my deadlift, screw the feet into the floor and press the knees out. I'm going to stick with that, the same thing. I'm going to take a big breath. And this is very important. We want to take a big breath before we move. If we move before we take that big breath, there's no way that we can fill our diaphragm, fill our lungs with all that air to create good bracing and stability. And so we need to do it immediately, okay? I'm also going to hold my breath through the rep, and you'll see that here. And then at the top, I'm going to breathe out, okay? We do that so that we get the ultimate most bracing of our spine. And in order to do that, we have to create some pressure, okay? And we do that with breath, okay, and air, okay? Breathing isn't bracing. I think I've seen that a couple times. People are saying that, and I completely agree with that. We've got to kind of hold ourselves and keep ourselves tight. And if we're breathing through this rep, we're going to give up torque and tension, and we want to kind of keep all that stuff closed. So let's also talk about knees and shins and where they should be, okay? So one of the main reasons that we push the knees out is so that we can keep our shins a little more vertical when we squat down. Having a vertical shin that's not coming over toe is what keeps us from shearing, okay? And shearing in joints is bad. That's what creates inflammation and breaks things down over time. So, again, all this stuff I'm kind of teaching you, showing you, is helping to kind of organize the direction of things and how things kind of line up. And we want them to do that in a certain way, okay? So having the knee vertical and watching for that as we're squatting and not getting too far knee over toe is what we want to kind of manage and make sure of, okay? And controlling the slack and the tension is going to help with. Next thing we're going to do is we're just going to kind of unload this part. So I'm going to just kind of walk back. Then I'm going to get to the rack. I'm going to kind of find it, sight it. Good. Like I said, I'm going backwards here. And the same thing, I'm going to just squat it out. I'm going to unload it and then just kind of off it off my back. Okay? So really, there's not a crazy ton to it, but it's very specific, and we need to kind of make sure that we're organizing this in proper sequence. If we get things out of line and out of whack, like I said, we can't kind of reorchestrate afterwards. We need to make sure that from the start, we're getting things lined up and organized, that we're getting a neutral spine before we lift things off and pick things up, and that we're making sure that we're controlling the slack from the shoulder too, okay? Doing things disconnected, or separated from top and middle just creates more separation, okay? And the last thing we want is that. We want a nice closed circuit, is what we said. We don't want to move with open circuits, we want to move with closed circuits, because that makes us the most efficient, it's the safest way to move, and it creates a platform for us to keep developing and getting better. Okay, the latter does not. It does just the opposite. Okay, so, but we know that we are going to have some restrictions and some mobility stuff, and we're going to have to work on that to kind of get in the most optimal positions here, to create good tension and to take slack out and get nice and neutral. And so as time goes on, we'll kind of start working on that, and we'll start talking more about that, how to kind of help with muscular imbalances and position issues, postural issues. But for now, we need to kind of understand how to create these good positions so, again, that we can kind of measure as we go forward. We need a good system for measuring kind of how we're doing and how we're performing and how our mobility is helping us. So first and foremost, we've got to understand the movements. So that's kind of what we're doing right now. We're really breaking down the movements. We're really trying to understand how to measure with them and how to do that safely. And as we go on, then we'll start kind of filling in and I'll start teaching you and showing you how to kind of see visually what's going on inside your system and what's happening, where the leaks are coming from, and how to fix them. Okay? So we'll continue on with that. I appreciate you guys being here with me again. Again, it's Matt Hill with Matthew Hill's Performance Fitness, and we'll check you later. We'll get you another cut here in a week or so. Appreciate you guys.